Okay, so in this video, what I'm going to be doing is recompile the Ubuntu 20.04 kernel in order to speed things up for like gaming and other kinds of 3D. I mean, it'll work for 2D as well. Because one thing about this, the way operating systems are at the moment, is that the companies expect the end users to do so much debugging that all that debugging has to obviously be turned on in order for the end users to help out with it. So what you tend to find is you can't actually get like a proper performance, like, you know, sort of racing car operating system, because these companies have to keep fixing all these bugs that they end up in these operating systems. Yes, so in order to get that going, what I'm going to do is just to, if you go to my site, and at the moment, yeah, so if you go into, it'll be in applications used, and it probably won't be at the top if you come here later on. So if you click on the recompiling the kernel, and obviously there's no video there at the moment, and it essentially has the instructions for what has to be typed. So if you just open a terminal here, it's best to stick it on there so that, because you're going to be needing it. And so what we do is, in order to get this going, right, so first thing we've got to do is just go into root, because it just makes it easier. So this is just, so what we're first going to do is just to update the apt sources list so that you can download source files. So everywhere it says deb-src, just uncomment it. Yeah, so I think universe is all we're going to need. You won't need any of the other more crazy stuff. So just do Control O to save it, and then Control X to exit. So then we just do update the repository files. Okay, so that's finished. So now we just need to get the dependencies for the current kernel. Let me just check something. Yeah, that's fine. So what this does is this just gets the dependencies that are needed for the current kernel that's installed. Yeah, I have no idea why you need some huge Java to compile a kernel, because that obviously isn't the case, but this is what Ubuntu is like. They always come up with these dependencies that make no sense. Okay, so that's done. So now we just need some more files which are going to be needed by the build system later on. Yeah, and here's the thing, so system D is supposed to be so wonderful because it's so fast. It's supposed to do stuff in the background, but for some reason, in this instance, it seems to not understand that the user wants to get on with something, so it just keeps you stuck. So it shows you that how systemd isn't as wonderful as they tell you it is. Yeah, all that's to do is just put it in the background, yeah, but I don't know. Alright, so those items have been installed. So now what we do is you have to exit from being root, because when you build the kernel, you get some errors. I think it's from yeah, fake root will just complain. Alright, so now we're going to get the source for the kernel, so it'll be downloaded. And so what I've done, this is actually a distro kernel, so yeah, rather than the one from the vanilla one, because the distro one will have like some newer drivers in it. Okay, so that's been extracted. So now right, so now what I'm going to do is, this is a patch which is it optimizes the kernel for your specific CPU. And so just going to download that. And so that's the more uarches one. That just means more micro arches. And so now we just cd into the directory that was created, which is the, yeah, so cd into there. And so now we're going to configure the kernel. So first we have to run these commands just to clean things up. And so now we're going to apply that patch, the one we downloaded. Okay, so that's added some configure options. And actually, before we do this, I just want to check one thing. Okay, yeah, so I just want to make sure I'm getting hardware acceleration. So it's using the Virgil driver, which means that the hardware, the OpenGL rendering is being passed through to my local graphics card. So this isn't going to be just fully software rendering from inside here. Right, so now I've applied the patches. So now I'll just have to do this little edit, because what happens is when you try and configure the kernel, there's a certain part where they will not allow you to disable it if you're in expert mode. So this is just the kernel developers just being difficult, which you'd expect. Because it's a standard thing you have with programmers, is they want to control the users, and they think somehow that by controlling the users they can make the world a better place or something like that. I don't know. The best thing I would say is just let the users do whatever they're doing and don't worry about it. They're just trying to be clever here, because this doesn't actually, they don't need to actually disable this because what we're after is maximum performance, and so sometimes you have to do a bit of editing to get that. Okay, and so now if we strip all of the performance killing bits out of the kernel, what will happen is the annotations files will cause the build to crash out. So what we have to do is make them empty. Alright, so now we have to edit the configuration for the kernel. Yes, we definitely want to edit this one because this is the one we're going to be running. Okay, so now's when it gets so now's where we have to we've got to do a bit of chopping up here. So I don't think there's anything here that we you want to get rid of these expert users one, and so you just use the spacebar to uncheck. If you see anything to do randomize, get rid of it. Harden, get rid of it. Yeah, randomization, get rid of it, because the randomization uses CPU. It uses CPU power, so you want to remove anything that's causing anything like that to happen. Right, now this is the important one. So process type. So we have to get rid of this because this sucks the performance, and we don't need Numa because you're not going to be playing games on a Numa. Oh yeah, and this is for me. This actually makes a difference because I'm on a virtual machine. But if you're on proper hardware, then you should actually disable this, because what this does is when it enables paravirtualization code, it actually, if you're running this on proper hardware, it slows it down. So if you're recompiling your kernel on a real machine, then you should actually disable that. But because I'm actually on a virtual machine, it actually helps me to turn this on. And yeah, we're not using that. Yes, we want multi-core. Get rid of machine check. And yeah, we don't need secure memory. Numa slows things down. You don't need memory probe. You don't need memory protection. No software guard. So we get rid of anything. If you go to 1000, this is better for a desktop. Get rid of live patching. So if we exit from there and let's see virtualization. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So now right, so the only thing I don't think there's anything. Right, so now what you might want to do, yeah, because you're not a router, you want to get rid of a lot of these because it actually saves time when it comes to building the kernel. Because you don't really need any of these. Obviously you need wireless. So you don't need that, no that, no that. Alright, so if you go to networking options, that. Just in case you want your VPN, because some of these are, yeah, we don't care about congestion. Get rid of IPv6. Best to keep net filter. Yeah, but you can get rid of these. ATM. Need Apple Talk. QoS study here, you don't want a data center, no Batman. Right, so if you get out of that. Right, so now this is the big one. You just want to turn off as much as you can here, because if you don't, it actually takes quite a few hours to compile the kernel if you don't turn off, a good amount of these drivers. You don't need that, no MTD. You don't have a parallel port. Oh yeah, MISC. You want to turn all these off because none of these are any good. Right, now you can't turn off, well, you can't turn it off anyway, but what you need to turn off, because unless you're on a server, you won't need any of these low-level drivers. Believe me, it takes a long time to compile these because these SCSI drivers, some of them are really big and they use multiple files. Oh yeah, but I need to keep this. If you don't keep that, I might lose my even though I'm not using it. But Virtuo is one of the options. But if you're on a normal machine, then you don't care about. Because normal Virtuo is PCI anyway. It's not SCSI. So you need the tape. The immediate changer either. Yeah, I should have just got rid of all. Yeah. Oh well, yeah, I did say that you wanted the vert.io, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So if you're trying to do this on a virtual machine, there's a good chance that vert.io will be on. So if you go to here, you can turn, if you turn that off, you'll be in trouble. But what you can do is you can turn on SFF because they're not using anything unless you're on some old crusty machine where you won't care about speed anyway. You don't need that. Don't need Fusion. No one uses Firewire anymore. And Macs are too expensive, so get rid of that. And usually with network device, it can help because some of these Ethernet drivers are big as well. We can get rid of this. There you go. Don't care about the Zen. No one uses ISDN anymore. Might as well keep. Alright, so generally you can get rid of everything except Intel and AMD as well. Sometimes Atheros can be on some motherboards. I've seen them. Broadcom usually not. Except if you've got an old motherboard, you'll have a Broadcom on it. I don't use DEC anymore, or D-Link. Emulect if you're rich. Yeah, forget Google. QA. Yeah, so if you just keep the Intel, because a lot of boards use Intel. Marvel's a waste of time. Yeah, Mellux is too expensive. I don't use National Semiconductor anymore. NVIDIA. If it's NVIDIA, it'll just freeze anyway. Yeah, Realtek, yeah, that can happen. Now, you might think, why am I bothering to remove all these? But believe me, 15 minutes of removing these can save you an hour of building. You might think I'm joking, but just leave all these drivers in and you watch what happens. How long it takes to actually build. Alright, so let's leave that. So, go to input device. You get rid of tablets, touchscreens, miscellaneous. Always get rid of debugging. That's for servers. Okay, don't need that. SPI. Believe me, these things, they really do. They really do take a long time to build some of these. If you turn off graphics support, you'll end up not being able to log in, so you don't want to mess with don't need that, don't need memory stick. And yeah, you can turn that, don't need that. Alright, and yeah, I don't need that. If you turn that off. Since I'm not using Zen anyway. And like I say, I know I keep repeating it. See, these staging drivers, this is a whole load of these. So you definitely want to turn them off. Some of these might be useful for laptops, but yes, if you've got a laptop which has, so what you do, just turn everything off, and then if you've got a laptop and it's something specific, because like I say, these things take a long time to build. It really does. So if you've got a specific laptop that actually wants one of these options, just scroll back up to it and then just enable it. So it's best just disable, so get rid of Chrome. Yeah, you don't want Surface. We don't need this because we want maximum performance anyway. Yeah, we don't need that. We're using Android. TPM. Alright, so we got rid of most of them. There's obviously still some things on. So now, right, yeah, it's worth, because some of these file systems are big as well, so it's worth turning off the, you might want XFS. There's a cluster. Oh yeah, you might want to turn off yeah, NFS. Right, now this is another big one, and that is security options. Now, when you come in here, all this stuff, it all slows down your kernel. So you essentially just get rid of all of it. Now you might be worried that the machine won't boot when you turn everything off, but I've already checked and it actually does. That's going to slow. Yeah, so that will help. I was going to say, especially this one, where is it? Yeah, remove kernel mapping in user mode. If you turn that on, that has a bit of a slowdown. So you definitely want to get rid of that. And so now, finally, this is I call this the Microsoft bit, because if you run Windows, a lot of this nonsense will be turned on, and the same thing happens with Ubuntu as well, because you want to use your machine to be, you want your machine to be as fast as possible. You don't want to have debugging on to slow it down just to help the developers. They should debug it themselves, not get you to debug it. So I'm going to go through, just turn off what we can. No, we don't need debug. Oh yeah, you need to leave this on. If you turn this off, your kernel's not going to compile, as I found out. So we turn this off, and a whole lot of stuff gets turned off, which is good. So some things are still on even after you turned off kernel debugging. Traces, so we can get rid of stack back trace as well. Get rid of sample. You need to filter access. Now that. So finally, this is the last one. So we get rid of early print K. If I hadn't uncommented that bit of text, I wouldn't be able to turn this off. And so IO delay, just do none. Don't need atom this. Now this is another one. This frame unwinder. So now, you see awk, if you check the help on that, notice it says it enables a 5 to 10% performance improvement across the kernel compared to frame pointers. So notice this awk improves the performance by 5 to 10% over frame pointers. So which one was selected? Frame pointer. So notice that in Ubuntu, they chose like the worst unwinder, the one that uses, performance will degrade by 5 to 10%. And that's the one that Ubuntu chose. And the thing is, the guest unwinder, if expert isn't on, you can't select it, which is why I did that edit. So now we're going to choose guest. Why? Because the guest unwinder has no overhead. So we want 0 overhead. And we're going to find out the difference that can make. And so that is it. So I think there's one. Actually, I just wanted to show you something, because there's one more thing I should have done. But I want to see, you might remove these, these various parts, and then try to compile and you get an error. But there's actually a way you can tell if it's going to happen. So let me just show you. So if I exit, then I have to save. And now this one, yeah, you have to edit this as well. So choose yes, even though we're not going to build it. then just go to exit and then do yes. So that's the end of that. So now we're going to use this next command to build the kernel. I just want to show you something, just so someone doesn't try it. And then when they get this problem, they're sitting there thinking, what's going on? Because of course, that same thing happened to me. Oh yeah, that's the next thing you have to do. You need to edit this file. So let's get this. Right, what you have to do, because this wasted a whole heap of my time as well. You have to change this top number, and you must get rid of. See what they'll tell you something like you must add plus custom to the end. But I can tell you for sure, half a day of compiling, I can certainly tell you for sure that's not going to work. What you have to do is you got to at least get rid of this 41. So then it's dash custom 1. So now you should be able to actually install this. That's if it builds anyway. So you Control O to save it, Control X, and so then we do the same thing for. I don't think you have to do both of them, but I'm just doing them just to be safe. So same thing here. So get rid of all this and this part, and then that seems weird. I don't know why are you editing a text file? And all I can say to you is try not to do it and watch what happens. And I might want to, yeah, let me just check this one as well. Because I just want to. Yeah, okay, because this is the one I was editing, but I don't know which. I think you only have to edit one of them, but I don't know which one. So. I mean, I suppose I could have found out, but after wasting half a day with the other problems, I just didn't have time. Right, so now just do this, just clean things up again. Right, so now it's time for the build. Oh yeah, just thought I'd explain this. So the reason why you have to have these on is because if you don't, the build will fail right at the end. You might not need this skip ABI, but the skip module, definitely you need that, because when you remove all those modules, the build will error out just right near the end, and skip Recompiling, it errors out in the same place as well if you don't skip this, because of course you want to have a nice fast kernel, not a super slow kernel that Microsoft wants everyone to have. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so now watch carefully, because a message is going to come up, and if you see this message, you have to stop and go back. Yes. Alright, so yeah, so you have to stop. Essentially, if you ever see any message like this, where it says unmet direct dependencies, you essentially have to go back and work out, you know, which modules you have to disable to get rid of this, because as long as this shows up, the build's not going to finish. So as you can see, it's complaining that it's complaining about ASUS WMI, and I can tell you that this is in the hardware monitor, and this senses Aeon. So notice it's got ASUS WMI. Yes, so it's the MFD Aeon, sensors AEON and LEDs AEON. So we need to go and try and find these particular ones. Yeah, so it's telling you which modules. So LEDs AEON is a problem. Sensors AEON is a problem. But this one's alright because it's N. Yes, yeah. So we're after these two. So we need to find sensors AEON and LEDs AEON. So we know where that is. That's in the hardware monitor. So what you might have to do, I know some people like monitoring their fans and this and etc. But what you might have to do is well, anyway, I'll show you. So what we need to do first, we need to do the clean, and then we need to go back into edit config. So we want that. So now what we're after, it's in drivers. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I wasted like probably half an hour on this as well, or an hour. I can't remember how long it was. So this is just to save you from having to waste the time trying to work out what on earth does that error mean, and why does the build fail. And so actually one thing we can do, let's get rid of let's get rid of all these as well, because no one cares about these. Well, you need these for hardware monitoring. They do take a while to build. So like I say, get it to build first, and then come back and worry about hardware monitoring afterwards. That's what I would do. And if you look up your board, it will tell you the name of the chip. So all you do is enable ones with the same name. So now what we want, the first one was hardware monitor. So we need to go, so we go hardware monitoring. Right, so you see it said AEON, isn't it? Yeah, so this is cause a problem. So we'll let's just get rid of all of these anyway, because these take a while to build. Some of these, they're not as big as the hard disk driving. But like I say, we're trying to get the kernel to build first. Once we build it, see the performance increase, then we're happy, and then that's when we come back and enable whatever it is we need to in order to get all of the hardware on whichever board we're using working. And the thing is, once you waste all this time, like you get your performance, and then that's it, you just leave it. And because you see, you got that kernel configuration, all you have to do is copy the kernel configuration into a new kernel. And see how many of these, this will take forever to build if you left all these in. And yeah, you don't need, well, let's get rid of Watchdog, because there's quite a lot of them in here. That's for servers. So yeah, we don't really need these, you know. But believe me, this does save you some build time. You might think it doesn't, but some of these files are quite big. Oh, what I'm doing is I'm just pressing the N key and then the down arrow. That's all I'm doing. So N gets rid of it and the down arrow moves it down one. It's just I've done this so many times that you get used to it. So the next thing was oh yeah, actually it might be worth, if you got a webcam, yeah, it's probably worth it. Let's get rid of these webcams. Yeah, UVC is what most of them are. So if you just get rid of most of these, because some of these webcam drivers are big. And like I say, if you find your webcam's not UVC, which is rare, then just come back in and just turn it back on. You don't need software-defined radio. No one cares about DVB. Alright, so what we... Oh yeah, this is another one you should turn off, because I remember there was a lot of these. So go to sound card, and you see that there's a... Leave... Oh yeah, HD audio, that's right. For some reason, on this particular kernel version, these two modules wouldn't build. I just remembered that. So if you're using this version of oh, that's right. I think because I turned off SPI, these two modules won't build. So they haven't done the dependencies properly. And there was something I was in. Yeah, that's right. See, this SOC, you don't want these. So these will take forever to build. So just get rid of, because this is not for desktops. So get rid of that. That will save you. And get rid of Zen as well. So that will save you a lot of build time. But the one we're after, remember it said something about LED. So we just got to try and, yeah, that's right. So go to LED support. And the one, yeah, see this Aeon LED driver, that's the one that was going to crash the build. But what we do is just turn them all off. Like I say, just make a note of, if you've got an LED, just make a note of the name of the hardware, or the chip that's, get a microscope or something and find out what chip it is, and then just enable the one you want. And that should be that. So if we exit, and yes, we want yes here, then just exit and yes. So then we do the clean again. So now we're going to do the big build, and we're going to watch carefully the output to make sure that we don't see that message. Right, so if you notice, it's not there anymore. So that should actually be it. Because when I was building this kernel, it's only those two audio modules that crashed out, and those Aeon drivers. But once I got that message to stop showing up, then it would build. So now all we do is just wait for this kernel to build. Okay, yes, this is one thing I forgot. Yeah, now where is this? Yeah, I should have checked in that media. So this is to do with these are camera sensors for like because they're I2C ones. So yeah, so I just got to. Let me see if I can cheat this. So rather than cleaning everything out, let's do editor configs. Let's see if it let me only build a part of the kernel. So I think this was device drivers, the multimedia. Yeah, this was it. probably just best, just because these camera sensors, this is more embedded. This is more what you have on a phone. You're not going to have this. Oops. Yeah, I should actually have disabled these. I forgot. Because this has got nothing to do with desktop. This is mainly for phones, really. Because these are all the different kind of camera sensors you can have in phones. And it shows you, this is where all these different phones, that's why sometimes it's hard for open source to actually get you drivers for the phones in the camera, because there's loads of them. So what I'm going to do, let's see if I can, it lets me just build the leftover part of the kernel rather than having to wait the whole time. Let's see what it does. Okay, looks like it's still gonna. Yeah, so that's the kernels. Now it's just doing the modules. Okay, sometimes the build can crash here, but usually when you know you've made it is when you start seeing it saying something about a deb. Oh yeah, I forgot. It's gonna build what's it called? ZFS. Yeah, it's gonna build the OpenZFS kernel module and v4l2 loopback as well. But these don't take too long to build. Yeah, so if you're into your ZFS, then Ubuntu supports it. And that's one thing which I suppose it has over anything Red Hat, because Red Hat they don't like anything from outside. Well, I should say IBM, of course, because right. So that's it. So if it ends with the word deb, that means you made it. And so now, if we cd up one directory and do ls, so they're all our deb files ready to be installed. So now, yeah, it's easier if we just go back to being to root, because there's a few things we have to do now. Right, so next thing, right, so actually I've got these in around the other way, because if you edit GRUB first, you don't have to do the update GRUB, because it does it when it installs. If you just update this GRUB file, so what you do, just change the timeout to 10 and the style to menu. So that gives you a chance to select the kernel at the beginning when it boots up. Because if you do something wrong in the kernel and it crashes out, then you have to reboot and then put the other version in. So now, to install all of this mess, just use this command. Right, so that's it. And so once you see, it tells you which kernels are in there. So now we've got the generic, which is the one we're running at the moment, 15. 13 is the old install one. And the 515-custom one, that's the one that we've just built. So this is how we, choose between them when we try to reboot. So now we're still in this 515. So this is the distro kernel with all the debugging turned on. So what I'm just going to do is right, so if we get this, okay, so what we're now going to do is just run some benchmarks with this old kernel. So first we're going to install them. Okay, so that's installed. So I'm just going to download this Zonotic. It's based on the same engine, but it's actually the demo is different. Okay, so that's finished downloading. So we just unzip that. Okay, so the first one we're going to try is just do benchmarks for 7-zip. Okay, so just in case something got in the way, let's just do it again. Well, yeah, so let's just go with that. Okay, so now we're just going to do the benchmark for yeah. So actually, yeah, I need to change the yeah, because it's actually slightly different. I didn't update the actual text. Actually, let me just quickly do that because it just makes it easier. Okay, looks like it's a good thing I did that because I didn't notice I'd run that 7-zip as root. So I don't know if that did bias the All right, so let's run this again as a normal user. Okay, so now Okay, so I'm just going to run this for 2 minutes. Yeah, so it looks as if the graphics on this are a bit too lightweight for my graphics card. Yeah, I think my graphics card was expecting something a bit more. The reason it's so fast is because it's a benchmark. So it's actually running at the maximum speed that it can. So what I might do is I might stop it when it gets to 15, rather than waiting the whole time. Because that would be like, well, it's supposed to be 5 minutes. But obviously you can see the timing's a bit messed up. Okay, so okay, so that's the result there. Okay, and so now we just run the next series. This is the same as well. Okay, so that's the result from running with the kernel that comes with Ubuntu. So now let's see what difference it makes. Oh no, sorry, there's just one more thing you need to run. Yeah, it's good old suspension, isn't it? Okay, so that's that. So now let's just save this. Okay, so that's that. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to and just reboot, and then just switch kernels. Right, so that custom one, that's the one that we just compiled. Okay, so let's see what's going on. Okay, so let's start out with 7-zip first. And I suppose because it's I suppose I should have rebooted before the other ones, but let's see, because we want to, let's just run some programs just to. Yeah, so the reason I'm doing this is just to dirty up the memory so it's not too fresh. So let's get rid of these. Right, so let's try 7-zip. Right, so I'll do the same thing, just stop it right when it gets to 15. was quicker. So already we've got a performance gain. Don't know how much of a gain though. Let's go sits bench at the end. Okay, so that's it. So let's see if all of that, what we did there was worth it, or if we should just have stayed with the distro kernel. Let's see what the result is then. So custom, see speed 1918178.165. Yeah, it's killing it, man. 18.6. Yeah. It's 1918. So it's definitely faster. 20. You might say it's not by much, but it's actually faster. That's the thing. This is a faster speed. Yeah, for decompressing, let's see what compressing says. 5, 18, 17. Okay, 22 is faster. 24. Yeah, you might say it's not by much, but it is faster. 17, 18. Alright. So let's see what. So, the Zonotic 12296 frames. 361. So I was out by a few frames. So custom took 80 seconds. And the distro took 88 seconds. Didn't even realize that. So that's the frames per second. Ooh, look at that, man. So the custom got 152 frames a second. And the distro 139 frames a second. That's, that's noticeable. And let's go with let's see what the average. So the minimum was 105 for the custom, minimum was 38 for distro. Wow. So the average was 157 against 145. And the maximum was 258 for the custom and 217. Ooh. So yeah, it's just feeling it. So definitely is a difference. So let's see what next users has to say. So exactly 1910 frames. And the distro took 12.36 seconds. Custom took 11.22. So that's more than a second faster. Frames per second. Well, yeah, again. And remember, this isn't graphics card. This is just kernel. This is just the kernel. So the kernel is making that much of a difference that it's holding back. Even though the graphics card is doing most of the work, the kernel is holding things back enough so that that you do lose quite a few frames. So it's 170 frames a second, and for the custom 154. Yeah, that's pretty. That's definitely noticeable. So let's see, minimum was 120 for custom, 110. Average was 176 over 159. And maximum, yeah, that was 90 seconds. So as you can see, so if you're playing it, so if you're a gamer, the custom kernel is going to give you some extra, especially if you're playing against some Ubuntu people in a tournament. So if some Ubuntu guys are in a tournament, you want your custom kernel, man, because then you're going to get that extra 10 frames a second to hit that. And that could make the difference between winning and losing a tournament. 10 frames a second could do. You never know. But for sure, if you're going up against someone on Ubuntu, make sure you put your custom kernel in, so you can get those extra frames per second. So let's see, Sysbench, CPU. So it managed a few more events. CPU usually isn't as much. See, 178,179. Yeah, so it doesn't affect CPU as much. Let's see what latency is. Okay, so latency was similar. The sum, yeah, that looks almost the same. Oh, but the max. Oh, so that's interesting. Maximum latency, 24 milliseconds for the distro, and 11 milliseconds for the custom one. So your latency is reduced. Definitely, okay, that's good. And events, 44, yeah, it's not much difference. Obviously more events. And total operations, 1, 2, 3, 7. Well, the distro managed more per second, interestingly. Yeah, I think I had this before, that with the memory, it doesn't, yeah. Oh, well, that latency is so even though it's doing better in certain things, the latency, the maximum latency, that's a killer. So your maximum latency is lower when you do a custom kernel. Yeah, so memory is not really affected that much. CPU is affected a little, but the thing that's a killer is your latency. So your maximum latency with the distro kernel is increased, and that's probably why these benchmarks for the games. That's why the frame rate is lower, because that extra latency just kills the frame rate. Well, it doesn't kill it, but it drops it anyway, that's for sure. So the conclusion there is that if you're a game player, and especially if you're playing in tournaments, you'd better get yourself a custom kernel and just get all that rubbish out, so that you can get those extra frame rates, and just so you can get that missile quicker than the other people playing with Ubuntu. And you can imagine that same thing with Windows, because obviously the Windows users, all their debugging is turned on as well. So when you run a kernel with debugging turned off, you should be able to do a little bit better on the games, especially on the multiplayer. Okay, so if anyone wants me to, go a bit more in depth into this kernel recompilation, then I can if they want to, but I suppose we just leave it there as it is here for now.